welcome you all here to today's Let's Talk Dairy. I'm just taking over for George Ramsbottom today, and George will be hopefully back with you next week. Next week, Teagasc will be running a series of webinars and other events associated with Breeding Week. So just keep up to date there. You'll see it on the Teagasc website or in other sources. To kick off, what we have today is we're going to have Joe Dunphy from the Grass10 just to give us an update. And then we have Eamon Fagan from Westmeath, who's just going to go over how things have gone for the spring so far and what's he's planning for, to the end of the first round, and a few other bits and pieces about his farm. So Joe, I'll let you fire off first, if that's okay.
Great stuff. Yeah, thanks, Pat, and good morning to everyone. So look, we're just going to quick run down through, I suppose, the pasture-based figures for the weekend and a few tips. So if we look at where the average farm cover is, kind of sitting in around 740, growth up to about 13, and demand on average coming in from pasture-based of somewhere in around 24, and the diet somewhere in around grass of 9 kilos, meal of 4, and silage of 4. Probably look at largely across the country has been an awful lot of rain down over the last week, and this the figures from LD from the predicted rainfall. This is from Tuesday's figures. There's huge amounts of rain. There's 60 mil of rain expected for Cork, 50 mil of rain for parts of the west, and 40 for the east. Okay, so many farms, particularly the wetter farms, will be at saturation or reaching saturation over the week. Okay, so for some farmers that were particularly maybe ahead of target on grazing, again, it's probably not going to affect them as badly, because probably grazing needed to slow down on these farms. But I suppose, if the objective is to try and keep grass in the diet every day throughout the spring, I suppose, to keep yield and proteins on the up and keep them keep them moving. So to keep grass in the diet, we just need to run back to the on-off grazing. There's probably a few weeks there that we got away without the on-off grazing, just with how good ground conditions were. But just to remember the few key points on the on-off grazing, for the grass, just try and get to the lower grass covers on your farm, so maybe somewhere about less than 1300, somewhere to that extent. Good square paddocks, and avoid softer hilly paddocks where animals may be pulling or maybe doing a little bit of damage. Try and go after paddocks with good access and road networks. The cow, make sure that she's conditioned to graze and has a keen appetite going to grass, even if it is for that 2 or 3 hours. Maybe it's for that one bite during the day. So there are the few key bits on the diet, and just a few, I suppose, checks and balances for over St. Patrick's weekend, just to check where you are on your farm. Check your average farm cover. Get out and do a walk on pasture base. We're coming out of a few busy weeks, so get your farm cover up to date. Review the percentage graze. We target, the aim is to target somewhere in around 65% by Patrick's weekend. With your AFC and percentage grazed in tandem, this is going to dictate the grass allowance on farms. About 40% of farmers are under the 700. So for a lot of these farmers, it's going to be grass by day for a couple of weeks. Okay, check your covers that's in the first 3 or 4 paddocks. If you're planning on starting the second round in early April, these must be at 600. So it's no harm to check where these are at. And when weather conditions settle down, it's no harm to just check what fertilizer you have out on the farm, and target 60 units out by Easter weekend. So when this wet weather passes, update and bring your fertilizer and slurry up to date. That's all from me, Patrick.
Thanks, Joe. There, just see there you have the sulfur included. So what levels of sulfur are you recommended to go out with, Joseph?
Yeah, so look at in this week's news, I have the piece there from Mark Plunkett. So there's a huge response there, about 2.5 ton in general on some of the research farms to sulfur. So we're saying somewhere in around 15 to 20 kilos of sulfur per hectare per cut, and for grazing fields about 20 kilos of sulfur per hectare per year. And again, products of choice, somewhere maybe protected urea plus sulfur 38 plus 38 N plus 7, or maybe something like 18612 plus 3% S, some of those type of products.
And with the sulfur on the grazing blocks, Joseph, you'd be trying to do that over a couple of splits?
Patrick, from March to July.
Lovely. Eamon, I'll just bring you in there. Have you any sulfur out, or do you use sulfur on your farm?
Yeah, we use sulfur. We'll be using it from now on. We have a pretty dry farm. And yeah, for years now we've been putting out sulfur. If we don't, we see a drop in grass production.
And you would also be putting it on the silage ground, Eamon?
As well, yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. Thanks for that, Joseph. As normal, anyone that has any questions, just drop them into the text box and Joel or I will keep an eye to that. As I said at the start, we have Eamon Fagan with us. So Eamon, just maybe tell us all about yourself there, Eamon, in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. So I do have a map there of the farm just for context. So you fire off there and we can just, so people get a visual of where you are.
Yeah, we're in County Westmeath. If you left of the dark colour is Loughree, the Shannon. So I suppose there's about 2 kilometres of shoreline along there, adjoining the farm. So to the right hand side of us then, Patrick, there's a golf course. Yeah, to the right of, all along that line, just that, yeah, right of that arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all golf course. So we're kind of snookered where we are. But anyway, we have 63 hectares there.
This platform here where we can see the roadways in.
Yeah. Yeah. That area along by the lake is all SAC.
All along here, yeah.
And we have a big problem with swans coming into all that area along by the lake. They will graze about 30 acres of ground on us every year, and that's our driest ground. So at the moment, I looked at that this morning. There's a cover of about between 300 and 400 on it. It's actually a bit lower than when we closed. So there's up again 100 swans grazing there all winter. So at the moment, our grass cover is low. We're around 570. We've been out since early February. We had some heavy covers that we grazed off in the dry weather. Got them cleaned off. We were out day and night for a while to get them cleaned off. So as you can see, we're tight now. So we're out by day, in by night, and just rationing. As Joseph said, we have to ration what we have left. We normally start the second round around the 3rd or 4th of April. So I don't know this year, it may be pushed out a bit more, depends on growth. As regards slurry, we have the whole farm has been done with slurry. About half of it was done in the second half of January and the other half was done there recently. We have a half bag of urea out at the moment, and so as soon as this wet spell passes, we'll be putting out another, I suppose, 3/4 of a bag or so.
We'll just show up your wedge there, and we might even bring Joe back in on that there in a second, Eamon. Just also, how many cows are you running there on that block, Eamon?
Last year we ran 190. The history we did run about 230 back 3 or 4 years ago, and which was pushing the whole thing too far because as you see, the swans catch us in the winter, and in the summer, if we get a dry spell, if we get 3 weeks with no rain, we're beginning to suffer from drought. So last year we milked 190. Even at that now is putting us under a bit of pressure when we get the dry spells. So might even have to go back to 180 on the home block. Now we have a second block, which we set up a robot on. My son, Pádraig, kept after me to do this project, so I gave in. So we have a robot unit, which is about 5 minutes away.
Just showed up there as well there, Eamon. Like, so it's just down here, just over here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Down this
so we have to travel the road. So there's some owned land there. There's about 30 acres of owned land, and the rest of it is leased land, but it's a lease we've had for years and years, and it'll continue as long as we keep paying the rent.
It's nice. It's nice the way you threw Pádraig under the bus for the robot there. So, so we might come back to that and how you manage that and decisions around that just at the end. I suppose we'll bait on through with the just a couple of the spring and things like that. Like, so you did just for people there. You have a high EBI herd, top 2 or 3% in your co-op, EBI 220, and young stock coming through. Just then from the grazing point of view, I suppose, and might bring you back in on this there, Joe, as well. Like, so Eamon said, like, the average farm cover, you did this yesterday, Eamon, wasn't it?
This morning.
This morning. We'll be glad we had you out early. That's the trick, Joseph, to get people to do walks, put them on a webinar.
yeah. Put the bit of pressure on.
Yeah. So the farm cover there is 570. So which ground there on that there, Eamon, would be the sort of that'd be towards the back end of the wedge there that the geese are on, or the swans, I should say.
They're on paddock 11, 12, and 13.
11, 12, and 13. Yeah. So the middle ones there that you were saying are all in around 300 or 400.
Yeah, and they haven't been grazed. Cows haven't been on them yet at all.
Yeah, and the swans are still on them, so they'll fall out sync within the thing. And these covers up to the front here, you're at 1700. So your cover will, as you graze them heavier covers off, your cover will drop fairly fast. So for the next, if we take it, we're Paddy's Day now, you need to get to, I suppose, Joseph, in around the 7th of April or somewhere like that, to give these paddocks here a chance to come back. That'd be fair, Joseph?
Yeah, no, at least like, probably 7th, 8th of April is probably where we're looking. As I said, if someone is targeting the first few days of April, they need to have 600-700 on 3 or 4. I think it's probably a common thing, Patrick, that people tend to say, oh, I have 700 or 800 on my first, but it's really the average of the first 3 or 4 that we need to, I suppose, we really need to be focusing on. And just another one there, Patrick, just, it's no harm to, I suppose, when we are down and we're hitting maybe the 500s or somewhere in around that at this time of the year, a very handy one to figure out grass allowance that you can give them is pretty much divide your growth by your stocking rate, and that'll give you the grass allowance. So maybe that growth there, we were saying maybe growths are in around 15 or something like that at the minute over, for this week. Like, so even 15 divided by 2.74, like you're talking 6, 5 or 6. So it's grazing by day.
Yeah.
On a lot of farms at the minute that have under, the 6, in around the 600.
And Eamon, there, just which were the first paddocks you did graze on your own?
17,
18 and 19, I
and
suppose.
18. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're sitting in around 500, 550.
Yeah.
And I suppose what your point there, Joseph, is that they need to be in around at least 11-ish hundred come the start of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose, Eamon, the question is for you, over the next, we have 20, 25 days, sure you'd want a growth of about 30 on average a day over the next 20, 25 days to get them up to 1100. The farm should be able to do that if the weather.
Well, the farm heats up quickly. It's if we get mild weather, it will jump. Now, I know we were out by day and night around this time last year, or a little bit earlier, I think. We were out full time.
Yeah. I think it's the moral of the story there this year, Eamon. The weather conditions were brilliant in spring, hard to leave them behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, you were getting hit by the swans, but a lot of people, their average farm covers were slightly lower starting off because of the overwinter growth. So people are probably a little bit ahead of themselves and just want to look. In one sense, you could say the wet weather helps. It's easier to put cows back in by night, but you wouldn't want to be letting your cover drop a whole lot more, or it could put you under more pressure for the second round.
Yep.
So, and when you said there on the fertilizer, Eamon, when the weather changes, you're hoping to go. What are you going to go with, or how many units?
I suppose urea, somewhere between 3/4 of a bag and a bag.
Yeah, so you're going 35 units or give or take to catch yourself back up.
Yeah, now the whole place has got slurry, pretty watery slurry. So confident between both that, it'll drive it on.
Very good. You'll be happy enough for that, Joseph, too. So he's basically got 3 applications of nitrogen by the middle of next week. Slurry, it's all got a half bag already, and he'll be going again once the weather allows. Yeah.
And I suppose just for maybe people on the call, Patrick, that maybe have nitrogen out and maybe one application, maybe some fields that haven't got slurry, it might be no harm that the next compound, the next fertilizer choice, them that maybe something like 18-6-12 something like that, to get that bit of pea in, because we are, say next week we'll be into the 20th of March. It's no harm to have that pea for what's coming in terms of maybe that little bit of heat, and to get pea for early spring growth.
Lovely. How are the cows milking there, Eamon, or any comments or just in the spring in general?
I suppose it's hard to judge. They're doing probably 22, 23 litres, that region. Protein has dropped seriously now. The last collection was 330. The one before that was 340. So it has been dropping.
Since you went back more on silage.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we had been feeding red clover bales, and they have run out in the last week. So we're back to pit silage now.
Yeah.
So they seem to be holding not bad on the red clover bales, and they were mad for them.
Yeah.
So we need to have more of those type of bales.
And is that your first year with red clover silage?
Yeah. Well, now the rest of it went into the pit, and I suppose we have one big pit that all goes in, and it's hard to keep it separate. So maybe I should be targeting. Now we plan to sow some kale ground we're going to sow the red clover mix in that again. So we are increasing our levels of red clover on the silage ground. On the
outblocks.
Yeah.
And when you say a red clover mix, it's going in with grass.
Going in with grass, yeah.
And do you remember roughly what rate of red clover is going into it?
I think it was 6 kilos.
So
just open that drawer there, Park. I'll get the exact amount.
Be good. And that's a great drawer you have there beside you.
Park is searching.
That's okay. Just when we'll keep moving there with Park looking for that. Just and again, I suppose it's something new, and maybe later on that might be something.
Well, we got 3 good crops. We had 10 acres of it down the road on an outblock, and we got 3 cuts of it. And on the 3rd cut of the 10 acres, we got 80 bales.
And when did you sow it, Eamon?
It was sowed in August of 21.
If I remember rightly, I told you it was too late for it to get a good crop.
Oh, well, I don't believe everything you say.
I'm sure you're probably as well on. So you got 3 crops off of that. And did you graze it at all, or you just took it for a cycle?
We grazed it. Actually, it done very well when we sowed it. So we grazed it that autumn late. It wasn't grazed in the spring of 22. It was cut. The first cut was taken around the 20th of May, then the 2nd cut in July, and the 3rd cut in September. For the first cut, it got about 70 units of nitrogen. 2nd cut, just slurry, and the 3rd cut, just slurry.
So I think that's a very good response, and the cows milked well off it. I suppose, Joe, again, probably something that some farmers have to look at, but again, all the basics have to be in right before that, as in soil fertility and all that. Yeah. Just when there's a picture there up on your swans, they're looking well.
Oh yeah, they're thriving.
Yeah, sure. That's part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You also have multi-species there. You're using multi-species as a way to incorporate clover onto your farm.
Look, we dabbled. I suppose what led me towards multi-species was, I suppose, that pond you see in the background. We're in a very, very sensitive area. Don't want to be getting hassled, so we in 20 odd years or going by 2020 we saw the first one. I think there's another slide there, Patrick. Yeah, that one on the left, that was sowed with multi-species 2020, and all that's left in it now is the clover. A good take of clover in it, and that actually only got it got a bag of urea in 2022 before the 1st of April, and I got no more bag nitrogen, and we would have put watery slurry on it maybe for after 6 grazings through the summer, and it grew as much grass as it. And in fact, I suppose what I'm finding, that ground that we're looking at is very light and sandy, and is first to burn up. But last summer it didn't burn near as much as in previous years, since we put in the multi-species stuff. Now, the one on the left you're looking at is the same as the one on the right, same paddock. The one on the right was sowed in autumn, it was in spring 2021. And the plantain has remained in that. Good take of clover, probably lacking in ryegrass.
Yeah.
Is a bit open.
Yeah.
Swans love it. But look at again, we have 3 paddocks along by the lake there with multi-species in, and the 3 of them got the same treatment last year, only bagged nitrogen up to the 1st of April and no more after that, and worked off watery slurry. We have a lagoon, so the slurry is pretty watery, and we spread that on those 3 paddocks, and they performed well. So I don't know. Ask me would I sow more multi-species. From what I see, the multi-species will die out of it. So if the clover is what's driving the growth.
Very good. Because I suppose it's as you say, if you're ending up with fields with good levels of clover, which is the key outcome. So it's part of our seeding program, and you're obviously measuring the grass, and you're getting the response to it. So
yeah,
very good. So just you also mentioned there, Eamon, that you're running a second unit with the robotic. So I suppose maybe just go through the thinking there, or
well, it was back. I suppose I was chasing cow numbers, and we were increasing cow numbers here at home, and the place just wasn't fit for it. And sure, we could see that financials were dropping. So it was a matter of cutting back numbers. We had this block of land up the road, really good land, probably better land than what we have at home, better soil on it. So look, between Porrick and myself, we eventually agreed to put up a robot unit. So there's 1 robot on it, a neat little unit, 30 cubicles. And we milked 50 cows there last summer. We'll probably run somewhere between 50 and 60 again this year. So it started with nearly all heifers, which I think Porrick found were a lot easier to train. We did bring up some cows early on, and they were taking too much time to train, especially in a busy time. So we kind of left it to mid-February, brought up a bunch of heifers. They trained quickly. So those same animals are going back up again this year as they calve. So we bring all home, calve them at home, and bring them up in bunches of maybe 8 or 10 then. And so what will go up to make up the numbers this year are more heifers as well. They're just take to it much quicker. So it's working nicely. Porrick has it well set up with roadways, wires, trying to keep it as simple as possible so that's not taking too much time.
And do you find, the decision around the robot was labour saving, and that's hard to, in the second unit, like I suppose?
Yeah, I suppose, like most people were telling us, put in a parlour, sure, it makes more sense from a cost point of view. And we kept wondering about the labour, and I suppose the labour came home to bite us then, because we had a man for 20 years here and he left us at Christmas, just got fed up of dairy farming. So, I mean, in hindsight, it was the best thing to do, because we've been finding it. Well, we have staff now. We have a student which came in March, but it was a tough month of February. There was 2 of us, Porrick and myself, and then a local girl has come in to help us as well. So it was tough going without the man we had for years, who knew the place well. We could depend on him. So, I mean, and we had tried a lot of areas for staff, but I don't know, they're not out there. So looking back, the robot, I know some people say it's crazy stuff, but looking back, it was a godsend we went that route, because if we had been trying to milk in a milking parlour up there this year, it would have put us under awful pressure.
And just with the management then, now that you're more sitting into it with Porrick and yourself, like, so the grazing management and that, you're doing a similar thing, or is it, what way do you work it?
Well, I suppose,
or the complication of the second unit now rather than the robot, like, or
I suppose it takes up more time. Like Porrick generally milks here in the morning. He's finished by 8:45 or that. Heads up to I do the calves. He heads up to the robot, moves wires. I mean, the critical thing with the second unit up there is that it's well set up, that it's only a matter of going up, moving wires, checking cows, doing a bit of washing and cleaning. He actually has put in a robotic scraper up there as well, which has been a big help to time-wise as well. So, he was spending a good bit of time cleaning up there. That's now gone. So particularly in the springtime, for the first 3 months, you kind of want that second unit as well set up as possible, that he doesn't have to spend too much time up there.
And naming a having all the cows at home and then taking a particular date and bringing up X amount of heifers then, or how's that working?
Well, last year, that's what we done. We kind of brought them up in bunches of maybe 10 or 12. This year, we're bringing them up in bunches of 4 or 5, as the ones with the robot have collars on them for the Lily robot. So this year, as there's 4 or 5 there, once they're going into the milk tank, they then go up to the robot.
Okay.
So you calve all at home, and then as the robot cows as such are clear for the bulk tank, you move them up away and they're cleared out of your own yard. So they don't actually graze on your own platform. They move straight up above. So you're balancing your stocking rate. Which is probably a little bit, in a lot of places where they're running second units, they centralize calve as you're doing, but the cows tend to stay on farm till there's enough cows there to send the milker up with them on the parlour. So I suppose there may be a small bit of a benefit there, that you can move the cows on as quick. To keep the pressure off your, particularly when you have a lowish cover at home, like,
well, it is a big help that way now to manage the thing at home. And I suppose, as I said earlier, this year those cows that are going up are trained to the robot, so it's only a matter of bringing them up and they're off working again. Now those cows, Porrick tells me, are yielding, what you say?
25 litres.
They're doing about 25 litres at the moment.
So the young lad's beating the old lad, is it?
Yeah.
We have the wrong person on the webinar.
Well, I can put them on if you want them.
So look, thanks very much. Just then going forward and into the summer and the spring, are you doing anything different this year, Eamon, or is it just same as, and lock down the system, or any other plans?
Well, I suppose we need another tank. We have to put down, we're getting tight in slurry storage. On paper, we're okay, but the lagoon catches rainwater. We're catching rain. We have an open, with the holding yard, it's a big tank, slatted tank, open, catching rainwater as well. This winter, we found we were under pressure, so we're going to put in another tank this year, and it's just to be comfortable, not to be looking over your shoulder all the time and saying, oh God, how many days is it to the 16th of January? I think we just need to be in comfort zone, and it takes pressure off. I mean, there's no point in going out with slurry on the 16th of January or the 17th of January just because it says it's time to go. Slurry has become so valuable that, and now we realize it, that if you have extra storage, if the last 2 weeks of January are wet, we can hold it until February, and pick our times better.
Very good. And I think the one of the lessons, and I know from talking to you before, is like that, and I think it's a message, probably Joe can come in on it there as well, that having the right stocking rate for your farm is important. You mentioned earlier that when you ran the cow numbers, you said the financial performance of the farm dropped off. So you think that sometimes a little bit less is a bit more, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, well, like when we pushed the stocking rate, we were into zero grazing. We were ringing a fellow on and off, and I mean, if you're doing zero grazing, you have to be a regular with the guy that's doing the contract work. Otherwise, he's coming into you at 10 o'clock at night, or, you know, and it's another job. And look, I think simplify the system. And that's where now, even if it means we have to drop back a bit more on the home farm, you know, as I suppose we all see the summers are getting drier, we get hit in the summer. If it does mean dropping back a little bit more, so be it. We'll try and have as much good quality bales, and I won't go back to zero grazing. If when we need extra feed, we'll use bales. Far handier, put them in during the day. They're there for stock. This thing we found with the zero grazing, you put in a big load of grass there, and maybe at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, you have to go up again at 9 and push it in. They go through that stuff so quickly. So look, the day is long enough without having to do that.
Lovely. Just thanks very much, Eamon. I suppose the moral of the story there has been a good spring, just from Joe's point of view with the grazing and all that, is for a lot of people to, I suppose, hold their own now for the moment. If there's any questions or that there, just put into text box. Joe, you just wanted to come in there about Clover walks.
Yeah, just to share that quickly for a minute, just a nice few participants on there, just to highlight it. It's in today's journal, anyways. But I suppose the Dairy KT team, the Teagasc Grass10, Clover 150, and the researchers were running a series of Clover walks again this spring. And just to highlight them, they're starting Tom O'Connell's in Cork, Clonakilty College on the 3rd and 4th of April, then to Cashlin, Tipperary, down Johnstown Castle. So it's a cross enterprise. All enterprises are included in this. The calf to beef system in Johnstown Castle, and Michael Hearn and Ballyduff in Waterford. Down to County Kerry then, and County Laois then. Thomas and David Fennelly, up into Midlands, Peter Robinson in Multifarnham, and over then to Grange then, the suckler system then on the 12th of April. O'Dee's farm in County Limerick, and O'Shingallen then in Donegal on the 13th. And the final two then, Killian Brennan in County Cavan, and finishing then on the 18th of April in Athenry in the sheep unit in Teagasc. So won't dwell on it, just that there's hopefully there's a number of events, one per regional unit in Teagasc, and hopefully there's something for in every location throughout the country in the coming week, starting the 3rd of April.
Thanks very much, Joe. Look, we're gone a half an hour there, or a little bit over. Big thanks to Joe for coming on and giving us the update, and for Eamon and Pádraig. I've known Eamon and Pádraig a good while now, and I can say it's a farm well worth visiting. Particularly, there's a local pub that you can call into afterwards. That's worth a hunt, isn't that right, Eamon?
That's for sure, Patrick.
But in fairness, in my time dealing with you, you're always you're open to trying new things, and I think you can see that, and you're always very honest with the feedback, and what's good is good, and what doesn't work, you always tell the truth on it. So really appreciate that. And look, for everyone, best of luck for the coming week. And as we said, we're at Teagasc, we're running a breeding week with Stuart and a number of events next week, so just keep a lookout for that.
Sorry, Patrick, sorry. You asked me about the red clover. There was 5 kilos of red clover, 3 kilos of Moira, and 3 kilos of Aberclyde.
Very good. Thanks, Eamon. And as you said yourself, you will hope to put more of that in on the outblocks. And in my own opinion, I think there's scope for that for a lot of farmers to do it. You probably should be isolating it and putting into all bales, maybe, to help you through the problem parts of the year, or if you get into droughts or that.
Yep.
Lovely. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you again.